Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson, and he is
Steve Lacy.
Steve Lacy, and nice to have you here with me, Steve. So we are a company called JSL Solutions, and we bring you tech solutions, I guess you could say, for your church, for your ministry. We want to help churches use technology to really further their purposes. And Steve, tell us for just a second or so what JSL Solutions brings to the table.
So we have three main products: StreamingChurch.tv, Church App Live, and MyFlock.com. Which are streaming products, mobile app products, and website and church management products.
So today, as we continue to do our little weekly podcast here and also play around with the video as well, today we're going to actually talk a little bit about small groups. And one of the things I forgot to ask you about, Steve, was there's some tech solutions to this thing about small groups and ways you can do that. So I'll let you elaborate that. That will be at the end of our podcast here. So we're going to talk here for just a few minutes here about why your church should really offer small groups, and also why many churches tend to struggle with small groups. I know the churches I've been with at times have struggled off and on getting their small group ministry off the ground. So let's talk a little bit about why that is and how we can help make it a little bit easier for people. So kind of jumping in here, I'll just take the lead here.
Sure, go for it.
I have found in my experience working with churches, and I've been doing it for, well, as I've said before, a long time, since the 70s, that most people, they'll come and check out your church, for the first time. They may come a few times, but the only way that they're really going to stay is they need to make friends.
Right. They've got to form a connection. Right.
There needs to be some kind of a connection. So making friends is what's going to, help people continue to come to your church, help them grow spiritually, and help them be all that they can in God as they get connected to a healthy church. And so making friends is really, and so that's one of the avenues that small groups does. Small groups give people an opportunity to connect with each other and make friends.
Right, exactly. So we have our small group tonight here. Yeah, so we've been hosting for quite a while. So it just gives you an opportunity to meet new people and develop some friendships and kind of go beyond the superficial name, address, phone number level of, hey, how's it going kind of thing.
Right. So a lot of churches really have kind of a hard time grasping this whole thing. They struggle with small groups. And a lot of it, I think, I have found over the years is because there's sometimes unclear expectations to really what the small group is and what it's really supposed to do. So since you're doing a small group tonight here at your place, Steve, tell us, what's the expectations of your small group?
Well, we have, you mean for those that are attending here, we have some rules that we, for people that are just starting out and coming to the small group. Basically, it's designed to be a safe space so that everyone is open to express and share what's going on in their life, and it's a guarantee that those things will remain private, so that you won't pour your heart out and then have come to church next weekend and everybody's talking about your or post it up on Facebook. So it's a safe, secure area where you can dive in as much as you want, or kind of sit back and kind of watch what's going on. It's completely up to you. We've got members that run the myriad of diving in and sharing, and others that just really appreciate sitting back and hearing others share, talk about what's going on in their lives.
So do you guys have a certain format when you meet, and how long do you meet?
So one of the things that I don't think is in our notes here that I think is important is we set up I guess you'd call them seasons for the small group, so that if someone's going to commit to a small group, they know that this group is going to run from this date to this next date. I can bail out at any time, but if I'm going to be willing to sign up for it, I'm really kind of signing up for being part of that group. So we mirror the school semesters. So we'll do a fall semester, and so it'll go for 2.5, 3 months, whatever semesters do there.
Okay.
And we'll knock off for holidays, and for example, we just got started. I think this is our third or fourth week back, and so it starts when the school year starts here in Arizona. It starts in late August, and then we'll go up through Thanksgiving, and then we'll be done until the next semester that kicks off, and we'll regroup, have the ability for people to say, hey, that group wasn't the greatest, I'll switch and go to another group in the spring. And then we typically will take the summer off, so people don't get burnt out. I think it's a healthy way to structure things so that they're not meeting all the time and not meeting. You're not like, oh my gosh, I got to commit my whole life to Wednesday night small group or Thursday night small group or whatever it may be.
My church recently started doing small groups too, and we decided for our church to do 6 weeks at a time, and so it's not 2 or 3 months; it's 6 weeks usually. And we found so far that that's been working pretty good. So, like with your groups now, what's a typical Wednesday night like? I mean, you start and what happens?
Well, typically we start with munchies and fellowship, I guess you'd call it. So we have somebody volunteers to bring a dessert of some sort, and we start in the evening, 7 o'clock, and after dinner. So we'll start with just talking and catching up and eating some munchies, and then we segue into, we're a little bit different in that we have one of the worship leaders that is leading our group that also has a guitar.
Oh, nice.
So he will kind of lead everyone in some song, and then we dive into, we've been all over the map, but what's going on right now is we're typically adhering to the teaching, the Sunday teaching. So we have some questions the staff has put together that follow up with whatever's going on that week. So it's basically digging into what the past weekend's teaching was on.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like how we do ours, pretty much the same way. I think part of it is because I was involved in when I was with your church. That's kind of the direction I kind of pushed it, and so I've just done the same thing with my church that I'm at now. So we do the same thing. And it's real important to start on time. At least this is what I preach: start on time and end on time.
Yes.
And the reason that's good is that way people know hey, this is when it starts, and this is when I can get out of here if I have to get out.
Right.
They're not going to feel obligated.
Right, and we typically adhere to that. After we break up, people kind of again chat and fellowship.
That's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But people know they have the freedom to go, and if they have to go, they can stick around for that. So, okay. So now you mentioned resource material. What you guys are doing right now is and that's kind of again what my group does is with the different church I'm at is we go over what we talked about over the weekend, discuss that. But have you used any other material?
Oh yeah, we've done topical series. We did the Truth Project for a while, which is I don't know how many weeks that was, but we'd basically get the group together. We initially kick off the initial group if we're kind of not sure which direction we wanted to go, and we'll just get suggestions on, hey, what do you guys want to go over the book of James? Is there a devotional that we found? So typically the leader will bring some options. This is in the past. And others will make suggestions and will basically say, well, let's drive down this path. So we've done DVD-based teachings where we gather around the television and play a DVD and then talk about what's going on. But for the past year or so, it's been primarily teaching based, so messages. Yep.
I think one of the reasons why some churches struggle with the small group thing is that it's not well defined, and then even I think there needs to be real clarity and expectations on them, so that people know, okay, if I'm going to be involved in a small group, this is what I'm in for.
Right.
This is what I'm getting, and if it's, I think flexibility is a good thing. But I think if you're too flexible and you have too many different crazy things going on, that could lead to some confusion, especially when you're trying to get newer people involved.
Right.
The older people, when I say older, the people that are regular attenders, have been around the church for a while, they may be comfortable with kind of a, hey, this is a loosey goosey thing where we may do this topic, we may do that, but newer people tend to want to have a little bit of a,
Right. It's
they
a
don't want
scary thing to
surprised. Yeah,
walk up to somebody's house
yeah,
in a strange neighborhood, it's people you don't know.
right,
I mean, it's akin to coming to church for the first
yeah,
time to a certain degree, especially if you're new to the group. So we've had some just completely brand new people that have joined our group that are just didn't know anybody.
yeah,
So and we provide we say, hey, this group doesn't fit well with you, then go try another group. So
yeah. So they're not locked into something.
right,
I think those are very important things, and I think that's why some churches struggle with the whole small group thing. Is they get either too locked in and they're not flexible enough, or there's not the expectations aren't listed out. And the other thing I think that the reason is I think the senior leadership, the senior pastors, and the people involved in leadership really need to buy into the idea. If they don't buy into it, I don't think it's going to be successful.
right. They got to buy in. They typically need to be a part of their own
They
small
do,
group,
yeah, they should,
and so that they're referencing,
right?
it's a very common next steps
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. So you've gone to the point where someone has just come and checked out your church. They like the church. They want to get a little more involved. It's a very common next step to say, well, let's start getting involved with a life group,
Right.
and that's kind of deepening their investment in their lives and in their relationship with the church.
And you mentioned you call it life group. That's another name for small group.
Yeah,
You
right.
call it cell group, life group. We call ours community groups.
Yeah, it's been through all kinds of different names, but they're all
Yeah.
pretty much the same thing, independent of what you call them. Yeah, small groups probably a common term for them. So,
Right. And I think you need to. I think again consistency. Whatever you guys decide to call your groups, try to be as consistent as you can with them. And then also one of the things you mentioned was some groups have what they call, or some churches have what I call or what they call activity groups. So it's not just sitting around in a circle singing "Kumbaya," and not that there's anything wrong with that, but you know what I'm saying is they're actually doing something, either working with some social justice programs, or they're actually doing something like playing basketball
right.
on a weekly basis or tennis.
Yeah, our group. I mean, and you can do both too. Our group, basically, each semester we try to sign up for a service project.
Right.
And so we'll go do that service project instead of meeting that week.
That 1 week, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we've gone and taken a bunch of food to a homeless shelter and fed a bunch of homeless people.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is there's lots of different opportunities to meet, and if it's more athletic stuff, if you've got a group that wants to be active and do things, you could make that your small group. I think you could do that on a weekly basis. I did that years ago with the church. We played basketball every Sunday afternoon. That was our small group, and it went really well. I mean, it actually attracted a lot of people, especially guys. It's so funny because there's this movement the last few years to try to attract men to church, because the idea is that if you can get the men, then you will get the whole family.
Right.
It used to be years ago when I was in ministry, it used to be if you get the woman, you can get the whole family. But we're finding out now more and more that if you can get the guys, a lot of times you get the whole family. So there's been a real push to try to get men in the churches. And one of the ways you could do that is do a community group or a small group or whatever that's maybe sports related.
Yeah, definitely.
Something like that. So, all right. So we're moving along here talking about on this podcast, talking about small groups and why it's important to have those. And we'll talk in a moment here about how technology can help your small group. But let's just cover a couple more things here. If you really want to get organized, and actually, if you've got a larger church and you have where you can actually have more than maybe 2 or 3 small groups, I want to encourage you, if your church is large enough, to really find somebody that's good at organizational skills. Good, that person is good people to people as well as systems, because if you want to really grow your church and have more small groups, you probably need to have somebody that can kind of oversee that and is good with those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Good with working with people, but good with organizing.
Yeah, and you're going to want to establish some consistency of
Right.
group to group and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
if you can afford to have somebody kind of coordinate
Yeah.
what the sign-up process looks like and the assimilation process
Right.
and training for the leaders of the group,
Yep.
all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think if you could, even a volunteer, if they had the time to do some of that stuff, they could always get some training from maybe the leadership team, maybe the pastoral staff if you happen to have one, those kind of things. But you definitely need what I would call a point person, point man, point woman, who would be able to really take that thing by the horns and really begin to or oversee it and work with the people that are already involved to do that. So again, real important to do that. And I'm getting to your part here in a moment, Steve. But
no
the other thing would be the big question I think that many people run into. Okay, who's going to lead a group? How do we find leaders? And so some churches go to real extremes where you have to be a seasoned leader and be somebody that's gone through all the classes if you happen to have churches that have classes. I tend to go the other direction on that. I tend to think that if you've got somebody that you know well enough, you can trust them. They may be a new Christian, they may be even new to your church, but if you've got some connections with them to some degree, you don't want to put a total stranger in charge of something, but maybe you don't necessarily have to have the bar so high, leadership bar so high, that it maybe prevents people from being involved.
Right. Well, you've got to somewhat, I mean, what happens in the group is a reflection upon the church as well. So you've got to have some safeguards in place. You don't want to have some guy you just met and have him in charge of the group, and he's teaching something that's not consistent with where what the church teaches.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
Yeah, that would not be good. So you want to have, I think trust is a key part of that. And I know a lot of churches will have a small group leader training, and you may have to go through a process of just identifying whether you're qualified to be the small group leader. And so there's things you can do.
I think when I was with your church, I think we did like one morning brunch. We did a Saturday morning brunch, and we spent 2 or 3 hours talking about small groups and we got together people that were either leaders or leaders to be or apprentices.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things. There's, like I mentioned, we don't actually lead our group. We host our group.
Right.
So there's a couple of roles there you can take part in. So the host is, we just offer our home up and an area and enough seating and that sort of thing.
And that's important. Actually, hosting, don't underestimate that, because a good host brings a lot to the table.
Right. We used to host and lead, and then we actually passed some of the leadership around for a little while within our group. We had a group that was...
You had seasoned people there.
Yes, very seasoned people, and we were perpetually small for many, many years. we thought it was us. We're scaring everybody off.
Maybe it was you guys.
It probably was, but now our group kind of exploded last year, but now it's split, and now it's back to normal again. So
okay, good. All right, so let's move on here. Our little list here of things that we're talking about when it comes to small groups and trying to deal with those struggles and the importance of having that. So, again, if you're going to have people involved in leadership, you really need to have people supporting those people. And when I say leadership, I mean leadership of the small groups. And you really should have a person, either an elder, somebody that's a deacon, somebody that's maybe even on staff, make sure that's important, that they are available to your small group leaders,
right,
so that they can stay in touch. Because there are people, sometimes as a small group leader, you deal with sometimes can be some heavy issues.
Oh yeah,
and so you want to make sure that there's support for those leaders and their apprentices.
Yeah. Another thing is just came to mind here. You mentioned about sports groups. We also have, there's other groups even non-sports groups that we don't really call them small groups, but they really are.
Yeah.
I'm part of a business group that meets.
What group?
It's a business group.
Oh, business group. Okay.
Yeah, so it's all people that own their own businesses, and and we come and we're going through some material that's basically geared to run your business according to Christian principles.
Yeah. I would certainly sit down if you're thinking about small groups or maybe reorganizing small groups at your church. I would certainly sit down maybe with some key people and maybe make a list of potential groups. Business groups, a great idea. Sports related groups,
Hobby groups.
Yeah, hobby groups. Yeah, exactly. Those kind of things can because you're trying to create something to connect people, and a lot of times we have this traditional idea like, well, we just need to get together and study the Bible. Well, that's good. I have nothing wrong with that. But there's other people out there that something else might appeal to them, and they can still grow spiritually because they're connecting with each other, and that can lead to other opportunities. All right. So how can technology help enable your small group? Tell us how that can happen.
Well, I'll give you an example. We had a couple from our most recent semester, not this one, but our most recent, because it was considered last year for going school semester wise, that it was a couple that the wife was had a condition where she couldn't actually go out in public because she was basically her immune system was very lowered. She didn't have AIDS, but it was that type of a thing where if she got exposed to a cold or something, it could be somewhat life-threatening. So she had to really limit her exposure, but she wanted to be part of the group. So one of the things we've done, and we've done various options with this, is we set her up so that we actually set up a spot around the circle in our home and actually put my laptop in, and she joined over the internet.
Oh, so you streamed it?
We initially went Skype, where she could participate via Skype, but she had problems with that, and so we ended up, since we're the streaming guys, that we just went the streaming route. So we streamed the small group, which is really easy to do, and
just from your computer.
Yeah, and she participated, via chat and that sort of thing. So that tended to work out. It's really a low burden on, for her part. She could follow along and join in, everything that was going on, and we could, so it was great.
We used to do an online small group, as you probably remember.
Yes.
When I was at your church, and we did online small groups, and so we actually
100% online.
Yeah, it was all everybody was online. It wasn't just a mixture of people in the home, and so we did that for a while, 2 or 3 semesters at least, I think, and we tried Google Hangouts, which trying to think what we ended up with. We did Google Hangouts, we did Skype. I think we tried some other platform as well.
Yeah, there's another platform as well. So the key to that was, if you're doing the online groups, is make sure that everyone has a headset, right?
Yes.
Because the biggest challenge is you get people joining, and they've got their microphone and their speaker right next to each other, through their laptop, and so inevitably you're getting feedback.
I mean, dogs barking, people's dogs in their house barking. So we would have people eating dinner. Somebody would be eating dinner in the next room, plates, silverware clashing. It certainly can be a challenge, but it was also in a lot of ways really beneficial. It worked really well, and it was in some ways it did. So that was good. All right, so weren't you guys using the app? You were using a mobile app too with your small group.
Yeah, we were using. Well, we were using the prayer board within the mobile app, so that.
So people, tell us again. There's a prayer board on the mobile app. So
there's a prayer board in the mobile app. You basically post your prayer request to the prayer board, and so everyone within the church body can see that prayer request, and then as people can pray for that prayer request, and it sends a push notification to the person that posted the original prayer request saying, Mary's praying for you. So it was people could see all the prayer requests, and then people could pray for them, and people were praying for them. So it was kind of neat.
Also, was it calendar? Was it the calendar you were using as well? Maybe somebody else was doing that.
Yeah, not our group.
Push notifications, going to remind people about.
Yeah, we were doing that too. We're using since everybody had the app, we would send out some push notifications.
And I do want to say this too, that if you're going to do small groups, you could certainly post something on your website. I mean, our company, we have a tool, myflock.com has a groups tool that you could use to set up small groups, and could have it where people could register for small groups online, those kind of things. So there are different tech-related tools that you can use to enhance people signing up on small groups. Again, we happen to have some tools, but there's other people that have them as well. Mobile apps can enhance that. We mentioned the video for people that can't make the group, or if you want to just do a total online group, you could do that. That works. So lots of tools out there that you can use that would enable your small group to flourish, to grow. Okay, anything else we need to cover on this?
I think we got it all.
So if you have questions about this, we talk about tech-related things, but we also talk about these church-related things that hopefully will help your church grow and maybe help you get over the hump. And the reason Steve and I do that is because we have a heart for churches. We've been working with churches for a long time, and it's been like since the Eisenhower administration.
Yes,
or something,
it was Eisenhower.
A long time. So, but we have been around for a while. So if we can help you in any way, we certainly want to be available to you. And you can contact us, support at StreamingChurch.tv. That's support at StreamingChurch.tv. We're on like iTunes, right, Steve? Is that where we're at?
We are on iTunes.
How people find us on iTunes? How do they get to us?
If you look for Church Solutions.
Church Solutions
podcast,
okay.
And you will find us on iTunes.
And you can subscribe to it as well.
Yes. And
newmediaministries.tv. This version of this, either audio or video, will be on YouTube shortly. So look for StreamingChurch.tv on YouTube. And again, if we can help you, if you have questions, or if you have something to add to this list, or if you think small groups are a terrible idea, let us know.
Yes.
We'd like to hear a reason why you think it's so bad. But we think it's a pretty good idea if you can make it work. So, all right. So consistency is the key. I think that's one of the things we got out of this. Right. Be consistent in what you're doing, and don't give up on it. Give it some time. Don't just give up on it after a month or two. I'd really push it for a year and see. You can reevaluate it after a year. But anyhow, we're out of time. I'll stop yakking. So he's Steve Lacy. I'm Phil Thompson. We're with JSL Solutions. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of time with us today. And you have yourself a great day. We will catch you next time on another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.